It's personal between me and you, and I'm going to do you some serious harm, you big stiff idiot.
The Untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing games are missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Alright, so there was a really intriguing fight on the undercard of Alexis Rocha versus Giovanni Santillan. It may have slipped through the cracks and under the radar with all the boxing that was on yesterday and the great performance that Giovanni gave us. But I really feel like it's important to highlight this performance and highlight this fighter, because on True School Sports we cover the sport of boxing. So if anybody's putting in that work and they're really delivering a world-class performance, they deserve some love, they deserve some shine, and even if they're on the undercard, right? So there was a fight when this card first got announced. I was very intrigued about one fight on the undercard, and that fight was a fight in the super middleweight division between Dynamite David Stevens. You know, I made a video about him back in January when I first seen him fight on Showbox. He scored an upset victory over Sean Hemphill. He's trained by Ronnie Shields. He's a regular sparring partner for David Morrell. You know, David Stevens made quite an impression on me in that fight. So I was very intrigued to see how he was going to build off that. You know, he had scored a victory since that fight, not so long after, against a veteran fighter, Marco Antonio Paraban. So it looked like his career was heading in a better direction, that he was, you know, on the move. He was taking that natural progression towards being in world title contention in the super middleweight division. But then on the other side of the ring, you had a fighter who I'm not going to front. I didn't know a whole lot about him, so I'm not going to sit here and act like this expert, but man, oh man, did he make an impression on me, because Joeshon James, coming to y'all guys live and direct from Sacramento, California. You know, Vallejo, California is where he was born, so he's a Northern California guy. You know, did it have the prettiest record coming into the fight? He wasn't. He didn't have a loss, but he had 2 draws. He was 7-0-2 coming into the fight. And man, oh man, this fight was a straight demolition job. I mean, there's not really a whole lot to dissect, because the fight ended with a first round knockout. Joeshon James blitzes Dynamite David Stevens, and he detonates the dynamite, and the dynamite exploded and got beat up badly as Joeshon James knocks out David Stevens with a barrage of punches. You know, dropped Stevens twice en route to a stoppage victory, and ultimately scores an upset victory. Now, what I found impressive about this from Joeshon James is, you know, he turned pro at middleweight. He's ranked, you know, he's not ranked in the governing bodies, but he's ranked on BoxRec as a middleweight. He's had a couple fights. His last 2 fights have been, you know, slightly above the middleweight limit at 161 1/4 and 162 1/4, right? So he hasn't really fought as a full-fledged super middleweight, right? And he moved up to fight, you know, a guy that, make no mistakes about it, Dynamite David Stevens is a good fighter, you know, and I'm familiar with him, and I know what he brings to the table, and he made him look like a D-class, like nothing fighter. So, you know, Joeshon James, from what I've gathered about him, you know, apparently he was one of Canelo's main sparring partners for the recent Jermell Charlo fight. So obviously, you got to think that sparring a top guy like Canelo Alvarez at the world level, who's a, you know, pound-for-pound caliber fighter, you got to think that that kind of work got him extremely sharp for a guy like Dynamite David Stevens. And you know, he took his O. Dynamite David Stevens had some good momentum. He was really having that good natural progression that you want to see from a young fighter in boxing, and he just derailed him. So that's why we love the sport, because you could see a fighter, he could look like he's on his way towards bigger and better things in title contention, and then boom, he runs into a guy like Joeshon James to derail those plans and crush those dreams. And now you look at Joeshon James, I'm kind of intrigued to see what he's gonna do, right? Because, like I said, he turned pro at middleweight. His first, you know, I don't know, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pro fights. His first 7 pro fights were all, you know, middleweight fights, you know, and in the 2 fights before this were, you know, fights that were technically super middleweight fights, but they were a pound or two just over the limit. This fight with David Stevens was the highest he ever fought at, and he looks sensational. So is he going to campaign in the middleweight division, or will he be at 168? Because we know, look, if Joeshon James is going to make a run into title contention at 168, it's going to be more difficult, just because you got Canelo holding all the belts. You got, guys like Andre, you got guys like Benavidez, you got guys like Plant, you got fighters like even Christian and Billy, who are, you know, even the guys who are ranked number 1 can't even get the shots. So there's obviously more talent at super middleweight. So if he wants the bigger paydays, it'll probably be at super middleweight. But if he wants to win a world title and maybe announce himself to the world as a middleweight contender, obviously I think middleweight's the route to go. And when I looked at his box rec, Joeshon James, he's ranked number 23 in the middleweight division. So he ain't too far off from getting in them rankings, you know, because I know box rec rankings aren't the most accurate, but you know, they give you a gauge of where guys are in the world. And he's knocking on the door. And with a win like that against, you know, a really dangerous fighter like Dynamite David Stevens, who comes from a good camp with Ronnie Shields, you know, he's made a name for himself. And as for David Stevens, look, I'm not one to throw fighters under the bus when they lose a fight. You know, this can happen to anybody on any given night. He wasn't ready for what was coming towards him, and Joeshon James was the better man. But I would like to still see Dynamite David Stevens, active in the mix, because I do like him as a fighter. I do think he has some value, and I do think he has some things to offer in the super middleweight division. So this isn't the end of his story. He's still at a very young age. He's 23 years old. So there's still some maturation to be had, and a loss like this isn't a death sentence. It isn't a death sentence in boxing. We saw what happened with Isaac Chamberlain yesterday. Isaac Chamberlain lost some close fights. He lost a close fight to Chris Smith, and he lost a fight to Lawrence Okoli, and he just became British champion, and now he's ready to become he's ready, and he is a bona fide contender in the super middleweight division. So, you know, your story is only over if you say it's over. So I'm still rooting for Dynamite David Stevens, but last night belonged to Joeshon James, and I wanted to show him some love with this video. So shout out to him, and I'll be keeping an eye out on both fighters to see how they both progress in their careers. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you saw the fight, what do you think? Who do you think Joeshon James should fight next? And what's next with Dynamite David Stevens? Leave your comments down below. Make sure you guys take the time to subscribe. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Daniel. So until next time, take care, guys. Thank you for watching another video on the untouchable True School Sports Empire. For more great boxing content just like this video, click right here and make sure you subscribe. Much love from sunny South Florida.